I love food from all over the world, but I think that my favorite has to be British food. Why? Well, because it's pretty simple, it's very delicious. It's not always the most healthy, but it's something that you can really enjoy for different reasons and at different times. So, what do we mean by British food? Well, UK food is very important in the world cuisine market. It's very famous and it drives the British economy. People who live in Britain usually have a bit of time to relax and enjoy their food, mainly on a Sunday. So that's something that I will talk about, the traditional Sunday roast. But it's not just about the Sunday roasts. There's lots of other options as well. If I was starting my day with my first choice of British food, then it would have to be the traditional British breakfast, the fry up, the full English. It's been copied by other countries, but no one does it quite like the British. So what's a British breakfast? Well, if you compare it to what you might find on the continent in France or Germany or Spain or Italy, they are quite partial to having sweet things for breakfast and maybe something a little bit lighter. And during the week, we wouldn't really have a hearty breakfast as such. We might stick to porridge or toast or cornflakes or something like that. But on the weekend, or maybe on a special day, we might treat ourselves to a full-on British breakfast. So what does that include? Well, it's a hot breakfast. So you can have eggs. And the wonderful thing about the eggs is that you can cook them in different ways. So my personal favorite is probably scrambled eggs, but I also like fried eggs. And I have been known to have poached eggs as well. But you can take your pick. Any one of those styles of cooking is a winner in my book. What else can we have? Well, bacon is an absolute must. Some streaky bacon. You cannot have a full English breakfast without a traditional piece of bacon on it. And it can't just be one slice of bacon either. It needs to be at least 2 to 3 slices of bacon, delicious bacon. Again, you can have different ways of cooking it. So you can really cremate it so that it's lovely and crispy. But I like mine not too crispy so that it's nice and juicy and you can really feel the flavors. Sausages are my go-to ingredient in a full English breakfast. They have to be pork sausages. I've tried chicken sausages and that doesn't really work for me, but pork sausages is a winner every time. But it's not just about the meat. What else can we have? I love mushrooms. I'll also have some toast with it as well. 2 slices of toast, nicely buttered, very traditional British bread. I might also have some tomatoes, possibly even some bubble and squeak. And I think that would probably be about it, apart from one of my favorites, which is a hash brown, or 2 maybe, depending on how hungry I was. Naturally, this is all washed down with a minimum of 2 mugs of piping hot tea. So that's a great traditional British way to start the day. But it's not just about breakfast, it's about lunch and dinner as well. And the dishes that I'm going to talk to you about now are very traditional for either lunch or for dinner. In the UK, it's very common on Sundays that people possibly have just one big meal and they have it maybe slightly after the traditional lunchtime, possibly about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But I have to warn you that these delicious 7 traditional British dishes are likely to make you very hungry. So number 1, fish and chips, of course. This dish is an absolute must try whilst you're in the UK. No matter where you are, you'll be able to find a delicious plate of fish and chips. And I don't mean those thin, crinkly little chips that you get in certain places. I'm talking about the big, thick cut chips that you can dip in tomato sauce. Fried fish, of course, perhaps with some mushy peas as well. And of course, the very best place to eat fish and chips is in the open air, preferably by the sea. But just watch out for those seagulls. Number 2, bangers and mash. One of the nice things about traditional British food is that sometimes the dish's name don't actually make any sense. What are bangers and mash? Well, basically, it's sausages and potatoes. So the sausages are the bangers, so called because when we cook them, they pop, they make like a banging noise. And the mash is potato because it's a style that we make the potatoes in. So it's mashed potato. So it's also known as sausages and mash. And this traditional dish consists of sausages and mashed potato, and it's sometimes accompanied with peas and gravy. This dish can usually be found on most menus and pubs across the country, but it can also be easily made at home. Number 3 is the Sunday roast. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the recording, British people, they love their Sunday roast dinners. And this can be as big or as small as you like. What type of options do we have? Well, there's usually beef, chicken, lamb, or pork. Some people like to have turkey, although that's probably more traditional at Christmas time. Personally, I'm not a big fan of turkey, so I try to avoid it. But if we're talking about a traditional Sunday roast, then you can't go wrong. My personal favorite would be roast beef. I would like roast chicken as well, but sometimes we tend to eat chicken during the week, so it's nice to treat ourselves to something different. I do love some roast lamb. My mum used to cook that as a special treat on a Sunday for us, or even roast pork as well. What does it come with? Well, obviously we can't serve it just up by itself, and we don't do it with chips. But we love to have some roast potatoes, also Yorkshire puddings, big Yorkies. They look like big pastry flowers, stuffing, and usually we like to have an assortment of vegetables. So we might have some roast parsnips, which is another favorite of mine. Brussels sprouts, which a lot of people don't like, but I quite like them. And then you've got the old favorites of peas and carrots. You might have some beans, broccoli, cauliflower. You don't have to have all of those vegetables. You can pick and choose. And of course, we have to have a nice ladle of lovely hot brown gravy all over it. Okay, next one is toad in the hole. I told you that we have some strange names for dishes in the UK. So what is toad in the hole? Toad, it's like a frog, isn't it? It's an amphibious animal, but it's not really, because this is another dish that includes sausages. So it's something that we can make quite easily at home. And effectively, all it is sausages in Yorkshire pudding batter. And as usual, like with the roast meals, it's served with gravy and vegetables. So as you can tell from the second inclusion, British people do love Yorkshire puddings. The next dish is, it's 2 dishes actually, because they're quite similar to each other. So one is shepherd's pie, which is a real favorite of mine. And the other is cottage pie, but they're very, very similar in the way that we produce them. They look the same, but we just use a slightly different ingredient in each one of them. So the only real difference is the choice of meat that you use when you're cooking these dishes. So for example, when we make shepherd's pie, we make it using lamb. When we make cottage pie, we use beef. If that's not confusing enough, just to confuse you a little bit more, neither of these dishes are pies in the usual sense with pastry, because normally when we have a pie, it's made with meat inside, like a kind of a pastry coating. But these are not with pastry. So these two, but the shepherd's pie and the cottage pie both consists of mince, which is either lamb or beef, as I mentioned. Of course, it has vegetables. So for example, we might use carrots or tomatoes or onions. We might use all of them. And of course, potatoes, which are on top of the meaty pie, like filling. So this is a real favorite of mine. When it's piping hot and we get a large, big ladle full and we pop it onto our plate, we know that we're in for a real treat. Okay, and then the final one that we have, it's not really a favorite of mine, but it's steak and kidney pie. So I love steak, but I prefer my steak in its entirety, so cooked off. So I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. Steak and kidney pie. So this is a much loved British pie, which is definitely a dish that you should try. What are the ingredients? Well, beef, which is delicious. Kidney, well, it's nice. Fried onion, plus with gravy, and it's all wrapped up in pastry, and I love pastry. So what's not to love about a steak and kidney pie? The final one would be a steak. So my personal, because there's a number of different steaks. You can have ribeye steak, you can have T-bone steak, but I like a sirloin steak. I like it cooked about medium, so it's not too well done, but it's not red either. I find this to be quite delicious, and normally I would probably have mashed potato or possibly some chips with it, maybe with a few mushrooms as well. So that's an old favorite of mine. But that's the main dishes. But we have to have a little sweet. Lots of people in the UK have what we call a sweet tooth, which means that they always like to have something sweet after their lunch. One of my favorites is a very simple dish, which is hot apple pie with either cream or maybe with custard. Some people have it with ice cream. I prefer to have something hot rather than something cold. So what the British grew up eating is similar to what their parents grew up eating, and it's probably what their kids will become accustomed to eating too. So if it works, why change it? You're a fan of warm cake and thick custard, sweet pastry tarts and dried fruit, then British desserts are definitely for you. So one of my favorites is strawberry fall. Yeah, you've guessed it. It's got strawberries in it, but it comes with cream as well. So it's a real summery kind of dish. Very popular at the Wimbledon tennis tournament. We put cream on quite a lot of things, and it might have something to do with the fact that UK summers are so short-lived, so you have to make the most of it. And what screams summer more than fresh strawberries, especially with cream? Not all of our dishes are cold. Some of them are warm as well. Jam roly-poly. So lots of British puddings consist of some type of cake or sponge served in a bowl of warm custard. I love custard. As I said before, some people prefer ice cream, but you can't beat a big bowl of vanilla custard, and a jam roly-poly is no exception. Number 3, Knickerbocker Glory. So this is a great dish to have after fish and chips by the sea. So there's nothing quite like a day at the seaside when you've had your fish and chips and you follow it up to wash it down with a Knickerbocker Glory. What is it? It's a traditional ice cream sundae, which is served usually in a tall glass with a nice long spoon. Then we have a syllabub, which is a very strange sounding name, but it's a mixture of dairy and alcohol. It doesn't maybe sound great, but the flavors are surprisingly pleasant. And it might not be too visually appealing because it can sometimes separate when the wine mixes into the dairy. But it's certainly something quite unique and worth a try. The next favorite, banoffee pie. And I think that if I could only eat one pie for the rest of my life, it would be this banoffee pie. What do we use? A digestive biscuit base, which is similar, but a little less sweet than Graham's crackers. If you think that making your own is super simple, it's quite simple. So just all you need to do is just simmer a can of condensed milk in a pot of water for a few hours. Don't be shy with the bananas, and top up with whipped cream and chocolate shavings. Sounds delicious. And the last one, the classic English Eton mess. Doesn't get any more traditional British than this. Named after the famous school, Eton, in Windsor. My favourite thing about an Eton mess is in the name, mess. You don't need to stress about getting your meringue perfect or even making it yourself. It all gets chopped or broken and tossed together for a sweet, fresh and light dessert that you can throw it together in a few minutes. So obviously, as you'd expect, the Brits would use strawberry cream. So there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed the tips that I've given you. Lots of different desserts, lots of different main dishes, and don't forget the traditional English breakfast. So that's fantastic, guys. I hope you enjoyed that.